Ninth episode begins with Lovat informing Brian that the latter will accompany him to the Earl of Mar's tynchal at Braemar. Julia will stay at Castle Leathers to oversee the household. Lovat mentions Isaac Grant's passing and that he pulled one over on Ellen, so the Grants will undoubtedly bend the knee to him. Julia wonders if it might be better for Lovat to bring baby Simon. After all, he's the future king of Scotland. Brian piggybacks off this, insisting that Julia attend as well. All the lairds from the wealthiest clans will have their wives on their arms. It's a power move. Lovat concedes to this, telling Brian and Julia to prepare for departure. Meanwhile, Uncle Malcolm McKinnon Grant makes a pit stop by Malcolm's carriage while en route to Castle Leoch. Uncle Mac was in London, petitioning on behalf of Malcolm's late father. However, now he's back in Scotland to cater to his new laird. Malcolm introduces his uncle to Henry. Uncle Mac vows to catch up with them at the tynchal. But first, he must tend to something more salient. Next, at Leoch, we see Colum chide Dougal. He urges his war chieftain brother to be on his best behavior at the tynchal. All eyes will be on Clan McKenzie. Ellen inserts herself into the conversation, reminding Dougal that if she can play her part, so can he. Uncle Mac barges into the Great Hall, demanding that he speak with Ellen alone. Once Colum and Dougal are out of the picture, Uncle Mac chats with Ellen for a spell about her upbringing, the rumors leveled against her, and her relationship with Malcolm. Uncle Mac threatens Ellen, asserting that if she breaks Malcolm's heart, he will rip hers out of her chest. Later, everyone arrives at Braemar Castle for the Earl's tynchal. Ellen and Malcolm walk among the tents, chatting about their grief over losing their fathers. Malcolm is glad to have Ellen's company here. Colum, Dougal, and Ned discuss the various lairds in attendance. Colum notes the presence of the Gallowglasses, who are formidable assassins. Dougal catches the eye of a lassie, but Colum sternly reminds him that there will be time for lassies later. Meanwhile, Brian spies Ellen with Malcolm. Murtagh remarks that it must hurt Brian to see his love with another man. Murtagh adds that he knows what Ellen endured regarding the purity test. He blames Brian for Ellen's tribulations. After this, Lovat asks Murtagh for an update about the Earl of Mar's impending announcement. Murtagh explains that the Earl plans to introduce a special, albeit unknown guest. Then, Henry spots Julia with baby William. He finally meets his son. However, their reunion is short-lived because Lovat interrupts. Julia makes an excuse for this Sassenach's appearance, claiming that Henry is an admirer of Simon. He knows the prophecy. Lovat introduces Julia as his wife. Henry's face falls. Clan McKenzie makes a fashionable entrance before the Earl of Mar's meeting. Uncle Mac, Malcolm, and his crew chat about Colum and Dougal, essentially splitting the lairdship duties. The Earl of Mar introduces his special guest, Rob Roy McGregor. Rob makes his case for the Jacobite cause. It's high time that the Stuart name rises again, like a phoenix from the ashes. It's time to restore their true king to the throne. The Earl of Mar urges the lairds to think about whether they're a Jacobite or a loyalist. They will cast their votes during the tynchal the following day. Lovat has his son on the brain and the prophecy that Maesri divined. He approaches the Earl of Mar, stating he will return with his heir to impart information that the latter will find most useful. However, Uncle Mac, who's no fan of Lovat, dunks on him something fierce. Seriously, how embarrassing for Lovat. Uncle Mac shares that Ellen's virtue was proven intact, so Lovat's casting aspersions failed spectacularly. Then, Rob approaches Dougal and asks about the money the latter pledged to the Jacobite cause on behalf of the Mackenzies. After this, Colum confronts Dougal privately. Dougal went behind his laird's back to conspire with outlaws. Dougal claims he's only concerned with the state of Scotland, not his own clan. Colum reminds Dougal that he swore fealty to him. Colum is the laird. He threatens to hire the Gallowglasses to cut Dougal's tongue out at the root should the latter betray him again. Then, Colum notices that Dougal is withholding something else from him. What could it be? Elsewhere, Murtagh tries his hand at dancing while Brian and Ellen make googly eyes at each other. They watch two men arm wrestle and place their bets on who will win. Brian apologizes for Ellen's purity test. He's glad she's okay now. He tells her he loves her as they surreptitiously link hands. Ellen urges Brian to meet her later at the old kirk nearby. Next, Ellen reunites with Colum and Dougal before joining the Countess of Mar's sewing circle. Colum looks irate. Before Dougal gives them privacy, Ellen learns that her brother disclosed her secret. Dougal reminds Ellen that Colum is his laird. Colum is incredulous. How could Ellen foster a romance with a Fraser? Dougal wouldn't even go there with his frequent dalliances. Colum wonders if he should have Brian killed so Ellen will stay the course regarding her engagement to Malcolm. Ellen threatens to turn the Grants against the Mackenzies should Colum touch a hair on Brian's head. She has Malcolm's ear, after all. Colum vows to leave Brian alone if Ellen will uphold her end of the bargain and never see him again. Outside, Brian finds Henry and explains Julia's situation. Meanwhile, Julia and Ellen sit together during the sewing circle. Ellen learns that Julia was forced to marry Lovat. However, she really loves Henry, her true husband. Julia understands that marrying Lovat provides protection for herself, her child, and even Henry. It's important to do whatever is necessary to keep our loved ones safe, even if it hurts us. This gets the wheels turning in Ellen's head. So, Ellen meets Brian at the abandoned kirk. She breaks things off with him, claiming she doesn't love him anymore. Brian doesn't believe her. He knows her heart. It still beats for him, as does his for her. Still, Ellen remains unwavering in her resolve to cut ties. She leaves him there. We see her burst into tears in the aftermath. After this, Brian returns to his family's tent. Lovat demands to know where Brian was when Uncle Mac was embarrassing him in front of the other lairds. Fed up with his father's abuse and heartbroken by Ellen breaking up with him, Brian attacks Lovat. Lovat responds in kind as Balak gets involved. Murtagh watches, his face awash with sympathy for Brian. Lovat deems Murtagh his representative in the impending tynchal. Brian will be the beater. Later, Henry chats with Ned about the Grants' machinations. Arch watches them from afar. Henry reveals that Isaac and Arch lied to him about Julia and his son. They're alive and at Braemar, but not well. He asks Ned for a favor. Could Ned help him, Julia, and William escape? Henry believes they need to leave before the tynchal concludes. Ned replies that Arch will be at the hunt the following day. That would be the best time to flee. Then Henry asks for another favor, one that's significantly less risky. After this, we see Ned hand Julia a note from Henry, instructing her to meet him by the shore during the tynchal. The following day, everyone prepares for the hunt. Malcolm chats with Ellen before the big event. Colum and Mrs. Fitz remark that Ellen is so lucky to marry such a gallant gent. Meanwhile, Brian fulfills his duty as the beater, smacking his shield to lure in the prey. Suddenly, an arrow whizzes past his head before landing in a tree. More arrows follow suit. Brian realizes he's being hunted. Someone hired the gallowglasses to kill him. Thankfully, Murtagh saves his life. Murtagh insists that if someone's going to murder Brian, it will be him. Brian and Murtagh flee the woods to their horses. Elsewhere, Henry and Julia meet by the shore. Julia apologizes for the mess with Lovat. Henry shares that Brian explained everything. There's nothing to forgive. Balak lurks nearby, though. Julia urges Henry to meet her outside Castle Leathers. She will leave a mark by the tree near the broken wall. Henry agrees to this. At the same time, the lairds meet to cast their vote regarding the Jacobite cause. Uncle Mac claims that Clan Grant is fully supportive of the Stuart king. The Earl of Mar and Robb realize they have an overwhelming amount of votes in support of the cause. The Earl of Mar steps outside with a flag, which he raises for James Edward Stuart, aka James VIII of Scotland and III of England, Ireland, and Wales. The crowd cheers. Suddenly, the finial falls off the flag, rolling down the hill. The audience grows silent. Is this an omen? A portent for what's to come? Malcolm pulls his uncle aside and scolds him for voting in favor of the Jacobites without consulting him. After all, Malcolm is the laird. Uncle Mac insists that lairds must act quickly and decisively. No dithering allowed, Malcolm sarcastically thanks Uncle Mac for his wise counsel. Then, Malcolm sees Ellen into her carriage, where Colum awaits. Malcolm is excited for his and Ellen's upcoming nuptials. Ellen smiles before taking her place beside Colum. They exchange charged glances before sitting in silence.